Yeah, mate. Just looking there at your logger, Timo, 22nd of the 4th, 2023 was your sign up date. Absolutely incredible, mate. And what a way to, I guess, start this testimonial interview, whatever you want to call it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Timo, and he's one of the OG goats of J2 coaching, as you can tell from the time frame of when he started. He's been here for a very long time, and we've done some really impressive stuff. And we're just going to have a little chat today about Timo, about his journey so far, and we're going to dive straight in. So, Timo, if you don't mind me asking, and if you can remember, how were you feeling, mate, before coming and joining the program?
Yeah, so you're right, mate. It was some time ago now, but it was, I think, several months after my daughter was born. I was kind of in the frying pan of new parenthood, and I wasn't feeling particularly good. Any new parent will tell you that zone is kind of somewhere between sleep deprivation and torture, and doing anything you can to survive on a day-to-day basis. And so naturally that leads to some suboptimal lifestyle decisions, right? So lack of sleep, not watching what you eat, just kind of doing anything you can just to kind of get through that first period, right? And yeah, mate, I didn't feel good. I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way I looked. And I remember waking up one day and just thinking, I've done the hard graft of the first several months and I've survived, but I can't continue to feel like this, to look like this. And health, and as you know, health and fitness has always been very important to me. And it's kind of the first time in my life where it truly slipped beyond the point that I was kind of comfortable with. And I knew that, if I tried to tackle it myself, it would take a long time. And I needed that kind of accountability and responsibility. And so, yeah, mate, that's when I reached out to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Like you say, I'm sure a lot of fathers or parents in general can probably really resonate with that. It's about, maybe going into survival mode, like you say, but, at least you had the recognition to think, I don't want to just like be surviving here. I want to, thrive, is a cliche term that you can say, but it's true, isn't it? You don't want to go through the rest of your life just surviving. You do want to thrive and feel your best and look your best. And where was your training, mate, in general, or your nutrition, if you can recall?
Yeah, so I think training wise, I was maybe doing 1 or 2 runs a week. Again, it kind of aimlessly, right? Though, like I didn't have a specific objective in mind. The runs had no other routine and regimentation other than just go and run, right? Like I think it was very much a tool for me to just keep on top of mental health, to give me a little bit of energy and to be a little bit of a release. I was in the gym maybe once, maximum twice a week. So overall, 4 times a week I was trying to work out. The issue was that, like I said, the sessions were totally aimless. And so there was no accountability and also no way to track what I was doing. It was very much just, I need to move my body, and I need to get a serotonin boost. I need to, make sure I'm kind of trying to at least take care of myself a little bit. The issue with that approach is, as I said, when you're doing it with minimal sleep, when you're not watching what you eat at all, there's very little structure to A, kind of keep you in place, but B, there's no way to track an outcome. Like, what are you working towards? And so, the reason I was suffering really was because it was just totally aimless.
I think that story, whether you're a new dad or not, is very common amongst most clients of mine. They've either been training a little bit, but there's just been no structure behind it or anything like that. And you can train, you can train with no structure, but you just don't really get anywhere. You end up spinning your wheels, and then a year down later, 2 years down later, 5 years down that line, you look at yourself and you're kind of like, well, I've not really got any stronger. My body shape's not really changed or anything like that. And then, you do become a dad, and then you can end up in this like massive spiral and this massive rut. If my editing skills are good enough, I'm going to put some side-by-side photos here. This was the first cut that we did with Timo. And when I say cut, I'm sure there's like, if I recall rightly, I think there's like 2 or 3 kilograms between those photos. And you look like 8 kilograms heavier between the photos.
Yeah.
So it just shows when you do actually finally get some structure in place with your training and your running, and you apply yourself exactly like you did, you know, the results are pretty astonishing in my eyes. You know what I mean? Like the night and day difference between where you look there. I'm sure 99% of the population would love to have, you know, the body that you had there. So when you did come on board, Timo, obviously you're still a relatively new parent at that time. And for people who don't know, Timo's very busy at work as well. He flies all around the world on the quite a frequent basis. So how did you feel, mate, coming into the program and kind of like just getting given, you know, more structure with your training, more structure with your nutrition, whilst fitting it around your lifestyle as well?
Yeah, good question, mate. You know, I'm someone that likes having accountability and structure, right? If you ask any of my friends and family, they definitely agree with that. You know, I like to have control. I like to know what's going on. And so, you know, the structure that your program provided, and, you know, it was almost taking away the decision fatigue for me, right? I would start each day knowing exactly what I needed to eat and which training sessions I needed to hit. And, you know, that's kind of liberating, because when you're a new parent, when you've got a full-time job, you have enough things to worry about, enough things kind of going through your mind. And so the last thing you want to kind of clog up is, what am I going to eat for lunch? When am I going to work out today? All that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, I found it fantastic, you know, just using the app, super simple, you know, constant communication with you in terms of what's working, what isn't working, how my body is responding, how I'm feeling. It's all stuff that provides you with a real high degree of insight, but also awareness, right? Like, what is happening and how are you reacting to what you're doing? Because, you know, when you go through a cut like that in particular, your body does respond. You do get kind of signals that you need to listen to, whether it's, you know, hey, I'm exhausted, you need to dial up whatever, or hey, you're training a lot and you're constantly sore, so you need to put more effort into stretching or rehab or whatever it is, right? There's lots of these little cues, and having that constant communication with you, but also having a record of it all was super helpful. Because otherwise, you know, I'll come back to what I said in the first question, is like, otherwise it's just aimless and you begin to create problems for yourself that you then can't address because there's no record of what you've been doing. So I loved it, mate. And, you know, that's the reason I stayed with you for so long, is just because whilst the goals may change and what I'm trying to do may change, the process is the same, right? It's structure, it's accountability, and it's knowing what you need to do on a day-to-day basis to get where you want to go.
Yeah, no, I love that, mate. It's so true. When I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's just fun as well, isn't it? You know, and I think when we first came on board, completely transformed your physique and stuff. But since then, we've been very much focused on a lot more performance-based outcomes. And let's talk about your 5K, mate. So we got Timo in amazing shape, and much like a lot of clients who have been with me past that initial phase of getting in great shape, we then start to look at, right, well, what's next, you know? And most people tend to, especially when we get a little bit older as well, we tend to move away from thinking, I just want a big chest, you know, I want some big arms. So I want to perform well as well. And saying, well, right, Josh, I want to get a sub 19-minute 5K. Timo, no problem, sir. Let's make it happen. So I think it was like the block actually got extended a little bit more than what we wanted in the initial stages, because you pulled your hamstring, wasn't it? Wasn't it playing rugby as well, something like that?
Yeah.
Something crazy. And then you're like, Josh, I'm not playing rugby anymore, mate. Off. But mate, how did you find the 5K block in general? And, you know, tell people what you did end up with as your 5K time. How did the day go itself as well?
Yeah, so the time ended up being, I think, 18:23, which was obviously well short of 19. So absolutely smashed my personal best. Yeah, mate, I think, to be honest with you, whilst the cut was transformational for my body, the 5K was definitely the kind of most focused I've been on hitting a specific performance target, right? And I think that I enjoyed the process definitely more than the cut, right? The cut is it's a mental slog, I think, more than a physical slog, because it's very heavily skewed around nutrition. And, you know, you have these days where you are very low calorie, you're in a real deficit, right? I think the 5K was awesome because it's very much, you've got to go out today and you've got to train really hard to get where you want to go. Oh, and great news, you've got to do the same thing again 2 more times in the week. And as you get closer and closer, obviously you're getting fitter and fitter, but you're also stretching what you're capable of doing further and further. And I love that, mate, because, you know, whilst when you do the cut, it's, you see in the mirror, right? You see the results, you're shedding fat, you're getting more muscular. When you're doing the 5K stuff or the 10K, whatever it is, performance, you only know when you go and do it. And so there was something very empowering about going to the track and just smashing out a PB time and doing these sprints. And, you know, by the very end, mate, when I was doing the kind of real tweaking, when I was almost like 95% there, I would just go and do things that in a year ago would have left me exhausted, and I'd be stood there with my hands on my hips like I could do that 3 or 4 more times, right? And I think that's amazing, because that's when you see how far you've come. And also, you know, feeling like an aerobic weapon is pretty cool as well.
Yeah. I remember looking at some of your split times and thinking, how how is this
Yeah.
happening? Some of you just like your easy runs as well, where the pace was like a 14, 20 minute per kilometer. Like, what's your heart rate on that, mate? Like, I want these easy runs to be easy. Like, yeah, it worries it like 130 beats a minute. I'm like, what?
They were, mate. They were. That's the crazy thing, right? Like, we were getting to a stage where, you know, I could do a 4-minute kilometer run and not go into like my final zone. I would just be kind of, I'd be breathing through my nose, out through my mouth, and I would just be like, this is great. Which is why when you get to the 5K time, you know that you've got it in you. That's the other thing, right? Like, going through the process and the blocks that you provided for me, you get to a stage where you get to the event or you get to the test, whatever it is, and you're like, I know I can do this physically. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just mentally going and pushing myself in that moment, because it is going to be uncomfortable and it is going to be hard work. But physically, I already know that I'm capable of going and doing what I've set out to do. And that's a great feeling as well.
Exactly that. It's, you've already created that stack of proof that you can do it. It's just applying yourself on that day there. So exactly. That's you know, that's as training methodology, push pull run coming into its own there and doing the thing. Now, Timo, I want to be really respectful of your time, and so just a couple more questions before we do wrap up. But you know, being here, you know, 3 years plus, and you know, done a lot of fantastic things in that time. How do you feel now, mate? Now, you know, yeah, how do you just feel now in general, like confidence and all these things which comes with being in great physique, but then just that structure in your day to day. Now that we're in this position, you know, we're talking about a sub 40-minute 10K. We've done some amazing other performance related goals, in great shape. How are you feeling now?
Great, mate. I think that, you know, when I look back on the time that I spent working with you, I think that the number one word I think of to summarize our experience is I feel empowered, right? Like, you've given me the tools that I need to make sensible decisions. I think nutrition above everything else, right? Like, I think that you've taught me a lot about how the foods we put into our bodies and the way you approach food has a direct impact, not just on your physical health, but also your mental health, how you feel when you wake up in the morning, how your body responds to different stimulus. I think that's been a real eye opener for me, because like you've already said, mate, like, I've done the cut, but I've also done the performance. And with those two different kind of goals, you have a different approach to nutrition. And I think that one thing that I'll always take forward with me is how making sensible decisions when it comes to the food that you eat has a tremendous impact on how you feel, what you're capable of doing, what your body composition looks like. And so that's always going to feel empowering, right? Because I know that that is something that is totally within my control, what I'm putting into my mouth and what I'm swallowing, right? I would hate to just, you know, keep things the same. I think that I'm someone that needs to keep things fresh and dynamic. And so, you know, I like changing things up. I like doing the 5Ks, the 10Ks, the cuts, you know, it keeps it interesting for me. In terms of how I feel, mate, on a day-to-day basis, I feel much, much better, right? I feel infinitely less bloated. I feel less lethargic. I've got more energy. It's kind of, it is transformational, the impact that fixing your diet and focusing on your fitness has, right? And like I say, the structure and the accountability is something that I really do enjoy. And I think that a lot of people they misunderstand when they come to someone like you, right, and they say, I want to engage in this program. I'd imagine a lot of them kind of dread the idea of logging all their food, because it's, they think it's a long process, and they kind of don't want the scrutiny, right? But I think it's the opposite, right? The opposite is true. There's actually more flexibility than you'd think. You have your free meals, you can eat all the fruit in the world, really. Like, it's more about making sensible decisions on a consistent basis than letting it take over your life. And I think that's something that I will always take forward with me now, right? Like, just starting the day off well, making good decisions, and compounding on the good decisions, right? That's the way I approach it. And that's a behavior that you definitely taught me. It's like, if I make sure that breakfast is good, I'm going to want to make sure lunch is good, because I know that when I get breakfast in me, I'll feel great. And then lunch, I feel great. And then by the time you get to dinner, it's like, well, I've been good all day. I'm not going to throw it out the window now. I've worked out, or I've gone for my run. This is the meal where I cap off the day and it's tick, right? Today has been a great day. I've made all sensible decisions. And when you begin to put a run together like that for a week and then a month, it gets to the stage where you just unconsciously make better decisions, right? Just not always going for that extra treat, or just saying, you know what, I've had a treat already this weekend. Let's save it for another time. Let's save it for next week. And so I think, mate, it's just good decisions compound good decisions. And I think that that's the biggest thing that you've taught me, is just be sensible, because the opposite is also true with bad decisions, right? It's very easy to just quickly say, well, I didn't have a great breakfast and I haven't had a great lunch, so I'll just have a bad dinner and then we'll just write today off. Next thing you know, mate, you've gone that way for a week, a month. The scales have crept up. You're not happy with how you feel or how you look. And so, it's been a tremendously impactful journey for me, for sure.
I love that, mate. Yeah, a lot of golden nuggets to take away from that, for sure. I think you're right, totally right in saying that. I think when a lot of people look at a coaching program, they think too much structure, no flexibility. I'm never allowed to do anything. And I think, when you look at Timo and his journey, who's a busy dad, travels all over the world, it's not like that. I think from day one, Timo's had a meal with his wife every single Saturday or Sunday since, and there is flexibility there. We're not stepping on stage. We're not bodybuilders at the end of the day. So building a routine and structure around your life is super important. And I'm pretty sure that Timo wouldn't have been here for 3 years if what I provided wasn't suitable to fit into his life. Last question would be, mate, anybody sat on the fence? Usual question from somebody doing a testimonial video. Anybody sat on the fence about looking to join the program, what would you say to them?
I'd obviously say jump in with 2 feet, right? Like, I think that I was sat on the fence for a while myself, and ultimately I just decided to go for it. I would say that, it's not a lifetime commitment. If it doesn't work for you for whatever reason, you can always just say, you know what, mate, not for me. But I can assure you that 1-2 months in, you follow the program, you listen to what Josh is saying, it will have an impact on you. It will change the way you approach your diet. It will change the way you approach training. Like I said, the accountability factor is enormous. You know that every week, Josh is going to analyze all your data. He's going to look at how you've been training. He's going to be honest with you. You've got to be transparent, but he's going to be honest with you. And he's going to say, look, this is working and this isn't working, and we need to adjust, right? So if you genuinely want to change the way that you approach fitness, approach nutrition, jump in with 2 feet. Because even if you don't do it forever, if you don't do it like for 3 years like I have, that's fine. But like I've said, what you learn in that period is transformational when it comes to how you approach yourself and, your own health. And, like I said, good decisions compound good decisions. And for me, this is just such a solid investment, because I know that I'll take this with me forever now, right? I'm always going to use the information that you've given me. No one's going to take that from me. I now have a much better understanding about how to approach health and fitness than I did before working with Josh. And so, you know, if you're on the fence, go for it. I say go for it.
Top man. Thank you very much, Timo. I really appreciate it, mate. 3 years, and every single week, I still love every single check-in. Thank you so much, mate, for letting me be a part of your life for that time. Thanks very much for your help, mate. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your time today.
No worries, mate. Cheers, pal.